She crumpled to the floor in the middle of the kitchen. One moment, she was there, stirring a pot of soup, softly humming the lullaby she used to sing to our daughter. The next, her body dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. Her arms and legs gave way, lifeless, collapsing against the tile with a sickening, heavy thud. That sound, it didn't just echo in the room, it split something raw and buried inside me. By the time we arrived at the hospital, she was already unconscious. Machines breathed for her, the steady rise and fall of her chest now governed by rhythms not her own. Tubes threaded into her veins. Another disappeared down her throat. The mechanical drone of life support filled the air, so loud, so unnatural, it drowned out everything else. The doctors came with cautious tones and uncertain words, each sentence wrapped in clinical comfort and professional fatigue. But it wasn't them who shifted the ground beneath me. It was a nurse who stopped in the corridor, her voice barely holding steady, her eyes sharp with urgency. "Please," she said, "you need to bring your daughter. Now." I didn't ask why. I didn't need to. I found Emma curled in a stiff chair in the waiting area, her little hands clenched into fists. When I reached for her, her fingers were ice cold, like some part of her warmth had stayed behind in that kitchen, fallen with her mother. Together, we walked into the ICU. What we found inside didn't just take the breath from my lungs, it stripped the air from the entire room. There she was, my wife. Still. Pale. A fragile frame entangled in a web of machines. But she wasn't alone. A man sat by her bedside, holding her hand with an intimacy that chilled me. His lips moved, repeating her name like a broken chant. When we entered, he looked up. And in that instant, my stomach twisted hard enough to make me dizzy. I recognized him. Her colleague. The one she occasionally grabbed lunch with. The guy I once toasted beers with at her work party. The one I shook hands with while she smiled beside me. And now, here he was, clutching her fingers like he had a right to mourn. His gaze fell on Emma. "You're her daughter," he whispered, almost reverently. "No," I said, my voice sharp. "She's mine." People say betrayal creeps in slowly, like a silent decay that eats away over time. But this? This detonated inside me. Instant. Brutal. What followed was a blur, nurses talking, voices muffled like static. Emma tugging on my arm, her voice shaking as she asked if her mom would be okay. I told her yes. Calmly. Steadily. But inside, I was falling into something hollow and endless. 15 years. That's how long we'd been married. 15 years of grocery lists, shared calendars, sleepy morning coffees, quiet bedtime rituals. I was the dreamer, the one chasing stability. She was the anchor, steady, nurturing, radiant. Or so I believed. I remembered whispering across pillows, our baby curled between us. The promises we made in the dark. I could still feel her hands cradling my face, her voice low and certain, "I'll never lie to you." And I believed her. God help me, I truly did. The warnings had always been there. She'd avoid eye contact. Her late nights at work turned into full-blown excuses. The way the laughter in the room dimmed when I walked in. Then came the note, last month, tucked inside Emma's lunchbox. A love letter. Sweet, handwritten. But clearly not intended for a child. Emma thought it was some silly mistake. I knew better. But I didn't say anything, not then. That evening, after Emma went to sleep, I sat alone in the garage, staring at the toolbox she gave me on our 10th anniversary. A silver plate on top read, "To my forever." That night, I understood something I hadn't before. Forever had an expiration date. So I dried my eyes, and began. I synced her iCloud to my laptop. Quietly installed a program. Invisible. Patient. I watched everything unfold. Messages. Pictures. Emails she believed she'd erased. He called her sunflower. She called him always. Always. That was our word. I traced her steps. She wasn't going to yoga. She was meeting him at the Rosewood Hotel, room 409. I took photos. Kept receipts. Documented every betrayal. At first, I thought she was gearing up to leave me for him. It made sense. The secrecy, the distance, the way she looked at me like I was furniture. But then the toxicology report came in, and the entire narrative cracked wide open. Her collapse hadn't been from anxiety or exhaustion. Someone had been poisoning her. And it wasn't me. I started digging. What I found peeled back the carefully constructed mask her sunflower wore. His past? Filthy. Violent. There was an ex-wife with a restraining order against him. 2 other women he dated, both dead from supposed overdoses. What looked like tragedy was really a pattern. And it had been hiding in plain sight. He was drugging her, slowly, deliberately. Trying to erase me from the picture. To start a new chapter, with my daughter. Whether she knew and ignored it, or was truly in the dark, I'll never be sure. By then, it didn't matter. I had everything I needed to bring them both down. So I waited. Let the doctors do their work. Let the hospital run more tests. Meanwhile, I was preparing behind the curtain. I hired a lawyer. Updated my will. Moved every single asset into a trust in Emma's name. Locked up the bank accounts. Froze the cards. 3 days later, when she finally opened her eyes, I had already filed for sole custody. A restraining order against him was in motion. The divorce papers were ready to go. But I wasn't finished. I needed one last act. A finale. One they couldn't walk away from. Something deliberate. Public. Undeniable. I invited them both to dinner. Told her I needed closure. We met at the Italian place she loved, our old celebration spot. The table was dressed in white linen, soft candlelight flickered between us, and the music hadn't changed in years. She looked worn down. He looked victorious. I slid a folder across the table. Before we order, I said, my voice calm, you both should see what's inside. Inside were photographs, taken outside the hotel, inside the lobby. Screenshots of their messages. GPS data tracking every lie. Toxicology results. And finally, my official petition for full custody of Emma. He stiffened. Her face drained of color like every drop of blood had abandoned her. You tried to replace me, I said, eyes fixed on her. Then I turned to him. And you tried to eliminate her. I know what you did, I added, voice like ice. The hospital knows. And the police will, too. By morning. He fumbled for words, stammering denials that no one at the table believed. She snapped. Turned on him in a flash. Shock and fury colliding as betrayal devoured betrayal. By the time the bill came, he had disappeared. She sat crying into a napkin. The divorce wrapped quickly. I kept the house. The savings. Emma. She was granted supervised visits and a growing legal tab. He vanished, like cowards do when light exposes everything. She sends letters now. Handwritten, full of apologies, explanations, begging for forgiveness. I don't open them. Emma's healing. She no longer asks about them. And I've learned that love without truth is nothing but a rehearsed act. I no longer clap for performances. Betrayal taught me more than any mentor ever could. It taught me silence. Timing. Precision. I don't regret my response. Only that I trusted without confirmation. But I corrected that, with patience, with proof, and with a final strike so clean, so undeniable, there wasn't applause, just silence. And checkmate.